What's up, everybody? Welcome to this review of the movie Fargo. In this review, you're going to hear my thoughts, and you're also going to hear the thoughts of Matthew Movies.
Kill me, I'm here! Kill me!
Now, I am a longtime fan of this movie, and this pretty much shows it here. I still have my VHS copy of Fargo. So, before I get to the actual review and, I share my thoughts and also let you check out Matthew Movies' thoughts, I do want to give you just the basic plot of this movie. So, William H. Macy, he is, I guess you could say, the star of the movie, although, that's a bit debatable. But basically, he is one of the major characters, and he's a car salesman. His boss is actually his father-in-law. So he has some sort of debt. William H. Macy's character, he has some sort of debt, some serious debt that he has racked up, which is never really explained. And I'll talk some more about that later on. But he's so desperate for money that he's trying to figure out all these different ways. He's obviously caught up in some scams, and he decides to have his own wife kidnapped. And the reason he does that is because, remember again, that his father-in-law is his boss. So he wants his father-in-law to pay the ransom. So he hires, through one of the mechanics that works for him, he hires these two criminals to kidnap his wife. And the criminals are played by Steve Buscemi, and Peter Stormare. And, that really is the basic plot. This guy, he has his own wife kidnapped. I really don't want to say more than that. There will be some spoilers throughout this review. But as far as the basic plot, that really is the setup to it. Again, this guy has his own wife kidnapped. So, yeah, pretty crazy premise. And then the big part of the movie as well is that it focuses on the sheriff that is following this case, played by Frances McDormand. And she won the Oscar for this, and rightfully so. She won the Oscar for her performance in this movie. So it also follows her basically, going through this case and finding out exactly what happened. And the way that she gets dragged into it is not the kidnapping directly. It's very indirectly. And again, I don't want to get too spoilerish right now. Like I said, there will be some spoilers later on. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the actual review here.
The list of Fargo's strengths is not a short one. First off, I thought the pacing is just so perfect. It takes the time to really marinate in any and all of the moments of this movie, but at the same time, nothing is ever dragged out, and nothing feels rushed, but nothing feels overly slow. I think the writing of this movie is amazing. It's such a funny, entertaining movie, and it's so the situations are just mind-boggling in parts, and you feel gobsmacked throughout multiple scenes. Like when stuff happens, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that, and yet it doesn't really feel over the top, and it feels like these are the type of things that people would actually maybe do in these kinds of situations if they didn't have much experience pulling off crimes, or if they were that nervous and freaked out and didn't know what else to do. But at the same time, they're absolutely hilarious. There's so many things in this movie from a writing standpoint that come back. It's very cyclical over and over again. Jerry has multiple freakouts. I think the movie is very, very funny in a number of scenes. The way people react in situations, will actually have you kind of guffawing in laughter. But at the same time, it doesn't pull any punches as far as it does get pretty violent, and there are definitely some very, very unlikable characters. Speaking of characters, I think that the acting of these people, the acting throughout the movie is just amazing. There's so many stellar performances. Frances McDormand, of course, William H. Macy, Steve Buscemi. The list goes on and on of performances that are just super duper impressive. And there's almost a dearth of people in this movie that kind of just come in front of you and are gone, and they don't stick with you. Throwaway characters Marge's old classmate that she meets to have a drink. He's super memorable. Like, and there's so many of these people. Like, when there's a moment where Marge is interviewing a couple of women to try to get some information, and they're in any other movie it would be very kind of throwaway and very useless, really, just kind of a situation to set up the plot or what have you. But because of the way that the characters are written, it is anything but.
Hey, they said they were going to the Twin Cities.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, is that useful to you?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing about this movie that's amazing is the originality. It is totally original movie. It obviously the world that it lives in isn't one that we see a lot of times. They're not the accents in this movie. I don't remember seeing in very many movies whatsoever. The moral of the story is told in a very cool way. It's just across the board. I've never seen a movie that was really anything like this, other than obviously it's a crime story and comedy and violence and that kind of thing. But the way it's told is extremely original.
As far as strengths are concerned, I would say the performances are just they're flawless pretty much. I mean, you could maybe nitpick. It's almost like it's tough to nitpick just because some performances are a little bit awkward on purpose. I mean, that they really are. It's very intentional. The Coen brothers, very meticulous. I think their casting, they really pay attention to faces. And if you've seen some of their other movies, you know what I mean by that. When they're focusing on a certain time period, they really try to find faces that fit. Or if it's a certain state, they really put a lot of thought into that. And it's just so obvious that they really take their time with casting and think about how the cast works together as well. So that is definitely a strength of the movie. I would say that something that they do that I've rarely seen done in a movie, I mean, I've seen it before, but something they do that's very effective is that Frances McDormand's character is not introduced until like a half hour into the movie, and yet it works. And I mean, it makes sense logically that she would not come into it at that point. So I think it's good that they didn't force that character in, even though she is a major character. They kind of let the movie flow naturally. And I think that, again, is just one of the big strengths of it. And the plot as well. Okay, I do want to go ahead and give you a heads up. At the beginning of the movie, it talks about it being a true story, which the Coen brothers have admitted this is not based on a true story. But still, it's effective just because you feel like this is a situation that really could happen. And I mean, there have been crazy situations like this before. People having their own family members kidnapped.
Okay, now, for those of you who just joined us, Katie here this morning is going to show us how to make holidazzle eggs ourselves at home. Now, Katie, I got to admit,
What?
I was a little bit surprised when I first picked this up.
Right.
This is an empty egg.
That's right, Dale.
Well, how do you get the egg? There was an egg in here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, you don't have an empty chicken somewhere that lays empty eggs?
No, I guarantee this was an honest-to-goodness great...
I think the music, works really well as well. The score works really well. The main score, if you really listen to it from beginning to end, it very much is, it's like it follows the plot. I mean, it starts off just very simple, and then it builds and builds, and the drama builds up, and it doesn't necessarily get chaotic, but it definitely gets more tense and everything towards the end. So it's really following that flow of the movie, and it just suits the focus, where they are located at as well. One additional strength of the movie that I really got to throw in here, and this is kind of getting into spoilers territory, although I don't think it's that major. But when you watch the movie, you will see that they never reveal exactly how William H. Macy got into debt, why he needs so much money. To me, I think that's a huge strength of the movie. Now, it may bother some people because, I mean, there are some movie viewers, they kind of like all blanks filled in. I'm not that type of movie viewer. I think sometimes what is omitted can be as important as what's included. So I think the fact that they don't include a reasoning behind why he decided to have his wife kidnapped is very important, because really there's nothing that would justify that act. And I think that's really making that statement by leaving that out. So I mean, whether he was like involved in gambling or just bad business, maybe he'd been blackmailed. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't matter what the situation is. All of the domino effect that he created by having his wife kidnapped and all the horrible things that happened out of that, including murder. I mean, nothing that he could have done. I mean, nothing that could have happened to him could justify what he did. So again, I think that was very smart of the Coen brothers to, basically just leave that detail out. And I think that's why they got acknowledged for their script, because that's something I wasn't sure about, and I did kind of check up on it real quick. And yes, they did actually win an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and they absolutely deserved it because they did a phenomenal job with the writing.
As far as weaknesses go, I sat here and this video was being put together, and I knew that there was, it was being kind of cut up into segments or whatever, and that one of the sections I was supposed to talk about weaknesses, and I racked my brain trying to come up with something, but I didn't actually think of anything that I would say, I didn't like about this movie, because there really isn't anything personally that I think is done poorly or takes away from the movie. I mean, I don't think it's perfect by any means, but I don't think there's anything in it that I would say are weaknesses. So after reflecting on it for a while, I came to the conclusion that if I really listed anything here, it would be just because I felt like I had to, and I didn't feel like that was really fair to the movie, because I like this movie enough that I honestly don't feel there's any like weak moments or anything weak in this movie, and I think that should be celebrated instead of trying to come up with something to say. So personally, I don't see any weaknesses in this movie whatsoever.
As far as weaknesses are concerned, there's only one I would give, and it's almost not a weakness, and if that makes sense. I mean, I'll explain. Basically, this character, Frances McDormand's character, who was playing this, the sheriff that's investigating and everything, she meets up with the old high school classmate, and this guy, he just seems like so out of left field. The whole scene feels a little out of left field, and it doesn't quite fit into the plot. It just feels like this kind of weird sidebar. So, I mean, it really could easily be lifted out of the movie, but at the same time, I don't really call that a weakness per se, because if you take that out, then I think the movie does lose some of its charm. So, you just got to see the movie really to understand that, basically. But I mean, some people might call that a weakness. I can understand that, saying that you could lift that scene out and it doesn't affect anything. But again, it's just real life. I like that, the idea of somebody being on their job and their focus, and then they have this little sidebar, this little sidetracking thing that happens there. And I mean, so it's interesting, but yeah, I mean, it could be lifted out and the movie would be just fine.
When it comes to my favorite character in this movie, for me, there was no question. It's going to be Marge Gunderson. I mean, Frances McDormand's performance as this character is absolutely amazing, and she definitely deserved all the acclaim that she got for it. And I'm so happy that based on this movie, she's went on to have quite a career. Like, I remember her in the movie Almost Famous, which I absolutely love her in as well. And I feel like a lot of her career is owed to this movie, because she plays the character of Marge Gunderson to perfection. And the thing that I like so much about her is that she's like never played for jokes, but she's very funny in a lot of scenes. Like, there's a lot of moments where there's a moment early in the movie where she's in the middle of a crime scene, and all of a sudden she bends over to potentially throw up, and it's the way that she does it. Like, the guy, her fellow officer, asks her if she's found something, and she just delivers like, nope, might puke or something to that effect. And the way she delivers the line is just so perfect.
You see something down there, Chief?
No, I just think I'm gonna barf.
She's like the only character that you can kind of relate to, because I've never been a master criminal or a horrible criminal or a murderous person or somebody who's had a family member taken. So she's really the only one that you can relate to, and she's written in such a intelligent and confident way that by no means is she somebody that you would ever want to trifle with, because even though there are definitely scenes in the movie where there are people that are played to be buffoons, and I feel like there is a degree to which, like, you know, like the act they play into the accent being like the people being like kind of, you know, simple or what have you, which I don't think is true of anybody who would have that accent, but maybe some people might perceive it that way, and because of that, like, this movie really is filled to the brim with kind of limited thinkers, and she is anything but. She's crafty, and her the way that she tackles things is very, very well reasoned, and I absolutely love her character.
Favorite character, that's easy. It's got to go with Frances McDormand's character as the sheriff. I mean, she, like I said, she won the Oscar for a reason, and I just like how you see the shifts in the character within single scenes. You really see her shift from being very inquisitive and everything, and but having this charm and this smile to her, and then you see that authority figure like suddenly come to light, especially in her scenes. Even though she only has 2 scenes with William H. Macy, they're both great scenes. And again, you just see that shift in her personality. You see how she uses her smile to kind of get over and everything, and but then you see that she'll get very serious when she needs to, not really threatening, but just authoritative. So yeah, she did an amazing job with the character, and you know, just turning emotionally, but still feeling real all the way through. And I also just like how tough she is. She's a very tough character, and you especially see that towards the end. And I'm not going to say everything that happens, but you definitely see it towards the end how tough of a character is, and just how all throughout how intelligent she is, the way that she pieces things together, you know. And I think they even use a deputy character just to kind of parallel how some police officers aren't always quite on point, whereas, you know, she really does figure some things out. So yeah, I would say that she just stands apart so much, and there are a lot of great performances. Like, I love Steve Buscemi's performance. This might be my favorite performance of his, but still, I gotta say Frances McDormand's character, just, you know, Marge Gunderson, she just takes the cake in this movie.
You're such a super lady.
When it comes to my favorite scene in Fargo, I'm definitely going to have to go with the moment where Marge goes to Jerry's office and starts questioning him and is looking for him to show her the car that is linked to this crime. And it's the thing I love so much about it is like the juxtaposition between the way the two characters see the scene. I mean, it's pretty obvious by this point in the movie that she is very suspicious of him and thinks that there might be something going on here, but she doesn't have anything really concrete to go on. And on the other end, but she's, you know, she's calm and cool and friendly, and, you know, she treats the scene like it's just a completely run-of-the-mill conversation, whereas he is pure panic and just, you know, trying to get out of this situation everything any way he can, but his mental processes aren't fast enough to come up with any kind of believable lie in the moment. And to see the, like, cat and mouse aspect between the two of them, but in this case the mouse is completely defenseless, and he can't scurry very fast and has a bum leg because he is so thoroughly outmatched by the woman that is across the desk.
Well, how do they establish that, sir? I mean, are the cars counted daily, or what kind of a routine here?
Ma'am, I answered your question.
I'm sorry, sir?
Ma'am, I answered your question. I answered the darn... I'm cooperating here, and there's no,
Sir, you have no call to get snippy with me. I'm just doing my job here.
To me, it personifies the movie. It's this this guy who, you know, is pure desperation and panic, coming face to face with somebody who's, you know, calm as a cucumber, and it is just a brilliant scene that I absolutely adore.
My favorite scene, this is really tough because I mean, the movie just has so many great scenes from beginning to end. I think what I mainly like is just some of the subtle little moments. As a matter of fact, one moment that makes me laugh every single time, and I guess I would have to call this my favorite scene, even though, again, it's so tough to choose one for this movie, but there's a moment where William H. Macy's character, he's speaking to Steve Buscemi's character, Steve Buscemi being one of the kidnappers, and they're having this conversation, and William H. Macy's actually at work, so he's kind of not trying to be too obvious on the phone, but yeah, at one point he asks, how is Jean? And Steve Buscemi is like, who is Jean? And William H. Macy is like, my wife. Like, it's so funny that the kidnappers like don't even bother to think about the woman's name. And I mean, it's messed up, but it's like it's such a subtle, really funny moment. I mean, just it really exemplifies that this movie is all about dark humor. So that's why I like that moment so much.
My final thoughts on Fargo is I love this movie. I think this movie is fantastic. I think it is very much deserving of all the acclaim it's gotten and all the respect it gets to this day. I think it deserves a hallowed place in film history because it really is just such a perfectly put together film almost. I mean, like anything, there's you can nitpick this or you can nitpick that and say, I might change this ever so slightly or whatever, but really there isn't a wasted frame, and everything is in service of the story. And you get to the other thing that's amazing in this movie is like how well drawn the characters are and how quickly you get to understand who you're dealing with, and to see them kind of in like almost a demolition derby, like crashing into each other. And like the moments, the other thing in this movie that I love so much too is there's so many moments of like bad luck or coincidence or things smashing into each other that could have gone any other number of ways but go in this direction, and to see the effect that it has on the various characters, like with the car driving by and the guy freaking out and all that kind of stuff, to see how that all plays out, her dad wanting to leave the money, it just is so well written, and just to me it is just a amazing nugget of a film that I think is definitely a must watch for anybody who is a Coen Brothers fan or a film fan.
To me, it's just a classic, and it's actually my second favorite movie of all time. And I mean, out of all the movies I've seen, second is really like nothing bad at all. I mean, it's a phenomenal movie. And if you're curious about what the first is, I mean, months ago I did, and it's still up on my channel, I did a top 10 list of my favorite movies of all time. So you can check that out if you're curious about it. I might try to remember to link that down below. But yeah, Fargo is my second favorite movie of all time, and I love it every time. I don't even know how many times I've seen this movie at this point because, I mean, I wore out this VHS copy. I've had it on DVD as well, and they have it on streaming as well. We actually watched it together on, I think it was on Hulu. It used to be on Netflix. Now it's on Hulu because Hulu also has the TV series, which I need to find the time to check out. I haven't seen the TV series yet, but I'm not surprised that it inspired a TV series just because, like I said, it's a realistic feeling story, and I feel like that it could spin out, and just maybe not the characters per se, but just the feel of this movie is really worth following up on because it was so well done, and it's timeless. I mean, that's something else that's great about the movie is even though the clothing and everything may date it some, it just still feels like a timeless story because it's a human story. So that's what's really great about Fargo, and if you haven't checked it out, do yourself a favor, check it out. Like I said, it's on Hulu, and I'm not a sponsor for Hulu. I'm not sponsored by Hulu or anything, but I know Hulu right now. I had left Hulu, then I started back up, and I think right now I'm only paying like $6 a month or something like that, and they do have free trials as well. So if you really want to check out the movie, you can do so, and if you don't want to keep Hulu, you don't have to. But yeah, this is definitely, if you're a movie lover in any way at all, you definitely got to check out Fargo.
Whoa. Whoa, Daddy.